Hey man, what are you listening to?
Man, I'm listening to the vintage album review in the old dirty basement.
Well, turn it up, man. What's up, fellas?
Hey, what's going on?
That got me there. I got kind of a giggle out of that.
right.
I haven't heard that in a little bit.
I never tire of that.
No, that was fun.
Yeah. So do you guys remember that commercial, obviously?
Of course.
Right? Yeah. Hopefully our listeners do.
Yeah.
Freedom Rock.
Yeah.
But this one here is my pick. This is our third vintage album review.
Yep.
Right? Am I right on that?
You are 100% right.
What was first one was
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi.
No, Bon Jovi was the second, wasn't it?
No.
Bon Jovi was the first one.
No, Appetite was the first, wasn't it? Or
No,
The first one guest starred Nutley. The second one guest starred Hawk.
Okay.
And now we are on our third one with no stars.
No stars, yeah.
You're the star, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
We should have had Officer Vincent for this because I know he's a Beastie Boys fan for sure. And speaking of that,
He might have been one of the Beastie Boys.
I think he was in Beastie Boys.
I think he was.
Speaking of Officer Vince, congratulations. Congratulations to Officer Vince. I read recently that he retired.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Our boy's retired.
Yeah.
I think he's going to full-time security for the podcast.
He should.
Yeah, he should do that.
We need it.
How long ago did he retire? Just recently.
Just recently,
Right?
yeah.
Like the last week or two.
If he's listening, like if you're having a retirement party, we will take a road trip.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know.
We'll be out there for the retirement party. We'll bring some ribs,
Let us know.
some pizza, something.
And we'll bump some Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
Because he would dig it. But definitely Beastie Boys is one of my, if not up there, one of my favorite bands. And this album is very influential in everything for me. And that would be Licensed to Ill.
Yeah, with these album reviews, we review the album that broke the band, that really, broke them into the mainstream. And in this case, it was for damn sure their first release, Licensed to Ill.
I like how you said band there, because a lot of times people think of like rap music. You don't really think of like a band, but Beastie Boys actually did have like a band before they became what people know of them as like a rap group.
They were certainly musicians, for sure.
Yeah.
They were definitely in a band before what you would call a rap group.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though as an artist, if you do listen to some of their older punk stuff, like a band is a stretch, but they were still a band.
Right. And one of the parameters that we kind of came up with for Vintage Album Review is when I asked these guys, like, hey, I want to do Beastie Boys. Now, if it was my choice as far as favorite album, it'd probably be Paul's Boutique.
100%.
Right.
That is their, in my opinion, that is their best. That is their masterpiece.
The masterpiece. But what we came up with kind of parameters is when we do this, it's the album that would break a band and kind of make them. And this is a rare occurrence where your first album is the one that broke you.
Yep.
A lot of times albums will come out and then it's the second or third one that, well, I shouldn't say that. GNR was like that as well, I guess.
GNR was, for sure.
Yeah. But Bon Jovi not.
Bon Jovi was not.
And most aren't, so. Yep. But this one, Licensed Ill, definitely was the one that set it off.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing then for how we're judging this, but
right.
We decided on Licensed to Ill.
Yeah, definitely, because this is the one that broke them. This made them
absolutely
worldwide superstars.
Yeah, prestige worldwide.
So tell us a little bit about, I guess, the Beastie Boys. I guess we should start out with how they became the Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
and what
like a history,
little history lesson.
Dave, I'm glad you told it before we go into this. I'm very glad you expressed your just appreciation and just a fanfare that you have for this. We always ask, why this one? Why did you pick this one? And we did it for the Bon Jovi one. We did it for Appetite.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely nailed it with this one. For sure. Like we all know why you picked this album. You are a Beastie Boys fan through and through.
For sure. They influenced me in many ways. So, but I'll get into all that later. And I mean, I'm sure you can tell by our logo.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this band, these Beastie Boys, came out of the burgeoning New York punk scene, specifically out of Manhattan and Brooklyn. There was long ago, he started a band known as the Young Aborigines, which included grade school friends Jeremy Chatan on guitar, John Barry on bass, and Mike Diamond on drums and vocals. A fourth member, Kate Schellenbach, on percussion, would later be invited to join the band. From what I read, I've never heard their body of music, but the band was a punk style with a mix of like reggae and Latin beats.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right?
Yeah, so he was very much influenced by The Clash, Mike D.
Okay.
That was like a band that he loved. And if you listen to The Clash, they have some of that reggae. You could tell some stuff's like reggae inspired.
It was like a ska type, like early,
ska,
early like punk ska.
Yeah, you can definitely see influences in that. So I'm sure if that's what they're listening to, that's what was coming out in their music.
Okay, I can dig that. So in addition to the band's music, Mike Diamond was also a fan of hardcore punk. In 1981, during his visits to club to see such bands, he met and befriended a guy named Adam Yauch. They were 16 at the time.
That's what I was. Yeah, I don't know. I think I was reading ahead of you, but yeah, they were a bunch of like pretty much just kids, like 16, 15, 14-year-olds.
Oh yeah, it was insane.
Yeah,
how young they were.
Well, and it's like Screwface.
Yeah, decibels.
Yeah,
for sure.
But these kids, like, they weren't like these hardcore kids like growing up in Brooklyn. I think all of them, they like went to private schools where their friends were from. Like they all had cash and coins, so they all had, they would take, music lessons. They all had their own instruments.
Oh yeah, they were from Manhattan and stuff. But like I have the Beastie Boys book, and I read it a few years ago, and I revisited it on the audiobook these past couple of weeks just to get refreshed on it. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really cool how they described New York City growing up. Now this is in the 70s. They described how walking down streets you would hear these radios panning from one to another with like maybe Latin music over here and like rap music over here and classic rock over here. And it was just a melting pot, much like New York is a melting pot of all these different styles.
I can dig that.
So New York, as I've been there a few times, is very fast paced, and they always seem to be ahead of the curve in all cities, I guess bigger cities are. So you can definitely hear and see, I guess, with the Beastie Boys, as we'll get into, their influences, like they come from all over the place.
No, but before country music, came out of like the Midwest and like places like that, like any music you would pretty much hear would be from like either New York or LA.
100%.
And then it would start making its way because the people that were discovered in these small towns, it wasn't like, they're coming out of like Montana with like this new beat. They'd have to get into LA or New York to start spreading that music.
That's where the scenes are at.
Yeah.
Dude, that's the funniest thing. So nowadays, everything comes out all at the same time. Everything is nationwide, right?
Yep.
Or you have the ability to do it. When I was a kid, I remember visiting New York as a kid and seeing like advertisements for movies or for this, that, and the other thing that wouldn't make their way to our area here in Pennsylvania till a month or so later. I also remember going out to California, like Simi Valley, right outside of LA, listening to the music and stuff out there. It wouldn't make its way to Pennsylvania until months later.
You probably get back here and be like, where's that song at?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
We're like Kazakhstan, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
In Borat, when it's like Michael Jackson, #1, and this is 2010 or whatever.
Yeah.
They just got beat it over there. But
so Mike Diamond's friend, Adam Yauch, began showing up at those young Aborigines practice sessions. Now, the young Aborigines would rehearse their songs. Their guitar player, Shaitan, would go home when rehearsal ended, and Yauch would hang out with the remainder of the band and practice other songs and develop their own material. So I think it's kind of weird to the extent that like he's hanging like, all right, like here's this band, this other guy's showing up. All right, hey everybody, I'm leaving. Peace out. I understand you guys are going to get into something else while after I leave. And then they would just rehearse completely different other stuff
and do different stuff. Yeah, it's almost like a relationship. Like you would think about if you were with your girl and then you left, and some dude showed up, and then they're like hooking
it's
up.
Not
with
unlike that.
Yeah,
I think they were just friends. Like I think you just like would hang out and be like, hey, I know you're doing stuff with the other guy. He's your guitarist, but like I got some cool stuff if you want to hear it. They had nothing else to do. You know what I mean?
It'd be like if JW showed up. And then we're recording, and then you guys, and then like
so that's what I think of.
Like JW or Matt and I and JW, or you and Matt and JW are doing something or whatever.
I can. That's the analogy I would think of. It's like I leave or Matt leaves, and then all of a sudden a whole other podcast is recorded. Like there's some kind of missing out, right? There's a FOMO,
right?
Yeah, but at this time too, they were just like kids. Like it wasn't even like a real band. They didn't think they were going to like do anything or make it anywhere. They're just kind of like I think just
having
jamming.
Fun.
Yeah, they're just jamming, dude.
You don't know what's going to become of it.
That's fair. I can dig that.
Sitting there drinking some beers when you're like 16, like, oh man, we're going to have here, check this out. And they had nothing to do. So they were just, the other guy had to go home and eat.
Well, there's that. And also I would imagine from Shaitan's perspective, Jeremy Shaitan's perspective, he would just be like, look, man, you guys do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't care less about that music. I can't stand it. It's not my style. So have at it.
Yeah.
No, well, that summer, this is now the summer of 1981, Shaitan left New York City to vacation with his parents. And while he was gone, the Young Aborigines Project was shelved, which is nice. It's like, at least nobody stepped in. But the three other members and Yauch had formed a hardcore punk band known as the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, boys entering anarchistic stages towards internal excellence.
Which I've heard was developed well after the fact.
No, well, they said on the Apple documentary that, I mean, they referenced that. So I don't know, maybe they did come up with it afterwards.
My understanding is it came up after the fact.
But the way they talked about it in the documentary was that Yauk came up with it and told them that's, and because Ad Rock made a joke like, well, we had a girl in the band at the time. So number one, so we're not really boys, we're boys and a girl. Plus, if boys is in that, is it an acronym? Is that what it is?
Sure.
An acronym? He's like, you already have boys at the end of it. So they kind of made a joke about it. I guess that Yauk had made up the name and the what it meant. So who knows though?
That's fair.
Maybe he did come up with it later, but you would think Beastie Boys doesn't really make sense.
I think there was a good alliteration for it.
Well, I also know they were big fans of Bad Brains, which is a punk band out of DC. So they wanted to have the BB, like the alliteration.
There you go. That makes more sense. Well, the Beastie Boys' first live gig was on October 5th, 1981 at Adam Yauch's 17th birthday party at John Barry's parents' house. Now, present at this show was a local record store owner named Dave Parsons, who was in the midst of starting up a record label known as Rat Cage Records. On November 8th, 1981, after having played a number of shows solely for exposures, no money, this is just to get their name out there, the Beastie Boys played their first paying gig. It was a show at a local venue called The Playroom. In mid-December of that year, 1981, the Beastie Boys were approached by that record store owner, Dave Parsons, to record what would ultimately become the Pollywog Stew EP album. The band broke up not long after recordings were complete. Well, let's fast forward to July now in 1982, when Pollywog Stew is finally released, months after it was recorded. Now, album sales within New York City's local punk scene sparked a renewed interest in the band, and the four members got back together to play some shows to promote it. Makes sense. Again, they had broken up by now. Now, meanwhile, another hardcore punk band, known as The Young and the Useless, had come up in the New York hardcore punk scene in the same fashion as the Beastie Boys. Members of The Young and the Useless included Dave Skilkin, Adam Treese, Arthur Africano, and a guy by the name of Adam Horowitz as their lead singer. Now, they too had recorded and released an EP on Dave Parsons' Rat Cage Records label. Oh.
Yeah, now, Horowitz was younger than those guys. I think at the time, MCA, Adam Yauch, is the oldest.
Yep.
And he might be like 2 or 3 years older. And then Mike Diamond and Horowitz, I think, are very close in age. You know, they were younger.
So I thought Yauch and Diamond were the same age.
Yauch's younger. I'm sorry, Yauch's older than Mike Diamond.
Okay.
Because he even made a reference to when he first saw Yauch at a punk show. Okay. He noticed him over there, and he was like a little bit older, but dressed really cool and stuff. They were like, man, that guy, he's like, he had the trench coat on with all the buttons and all that. And they were very intimidated by him, like, oh, he's too cool to go up and talk to, which they ended up befriending him then. But yeah, there's an age difference for sure.
Okay. Well, by December of 1982, the Beastie Boys had gained a substantial following and were playing a number of shows in the New York hardcore punk scene. In fact, The Young and the Useless was one of their opening acts. Shortly before New Year's Eve, 1982, John Barry quit the band. Adam Horowitz was invited to join in his place. I see something forming here. In March of 1983, the Beastie Boys recorded the Cookie Puss, which would be released not long after. By the end of the summer, 1983, despite having had moderate success, the Beastie Boys shelved the band when 3 of its 4 members, Diamond, Yauch, and Schellenbach, went off to their first semester of college. Adam Horowitz, being the youngest, was still in high school.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Horowitz was still younger.
There you go. Well, upon his return from college for mid-year break in December of 1983, Mike Diamond decided to drop out of school and devote his time and efforts to the Beastie Boys. In February 1984, this is just a couple of months later, the band played a show in Boston with a new additional member, none other than Rick Rubin, who served as the band's DJ, then known as DJ Double R, and enabled the members to better perform for their tracks to sound fuller.
Yeah, so that, too, they were talking about when they first met Rick Rubin. Yep. At that time, like I said, they were very much getting into hip-hop. So they were trying to scratch on, like, their parents, like, regular turntables. Yeah. And they were saying how they were, like, ruining the equipment and stuff. But when they first met Ruben, not only you're going to ruin the records, but the needles and everything on
Dude, I'm sure I'm not the only one to say that I tried to scratch on my parents' turntable, which is not a DJ turntable with the heavy arm or the heavy head to it.
No.
I'm sure I ruined a record player or two.
Yeah, you'll really jack it up. But Ruben had 2 Techniques 1200s in his dorm room, which are like, I mean, at the time and still to this day, like, you know, legendary machines for scratching and doing all that. But you have to have a specific needle and type turntable for that, or you'll just ruin everything.
Yeah.
But he had all that equipment.
Now, didn't Ruben go to high school with, which one? Was it Mike Diamond?
No,
or?
Ruben's older, so he's in college at the time.
Yep, he was
okay.
at NYU.
And that's how they met him in college. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew they were classmates of him, so I guess it was in college, is what I read with classmates. But.
So, well, nobody went to school with Ruben.
They just hung out with him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
They were in high school, and he was in college at that time. So he was a couple years older.
Okay.
They were seeking, at some point, what I had gathered, they were looking for a DJ because they really wanted to, again, have to be able to be out there and not have to worry about maintaining the sound that was, of course, overlaid with extra tracks on the recording, but they also wanted to have an MC.
Right.
Like somebody, you know, that's back there that could, you know, just keep everything on pace while they do whatever they were doing.
Yeah, because they could still play instruments, but they know they needed somebody. Yeah, they didn't know how to scratch or mix.
They didn't know how to do all that while they're trying to perform.
Yeah. Yep. Rick Rubin, he's a smart kid. In the spring of that year, Rubin convinced the band to leave Rat Cage Records and join up with his up-and-coming Def Jam record label.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Right.
He also convinced them to find new management under an up-and-coming hip-hop producer named Russell Simmons. That's
never heard of him either.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him either,
No. By July of 84, Rubin and Simmons partnered to reform Def Jam into Def Jam Recordings. Fun fact, the label's first release was LL Cool J's I Need a Beat. Even more fun fact, Adam Horowitz provided the beat for that track.
Yeah, I was gonna say he could DJ too. Like, he could do all that stuff
For sure.
but he couldn't do that NMC at the same time.
No. Rick Rubin and Def Jam Records proved to be the shift in the Beastie Boys' musical style. The Beastie Boys' first single with Def Jam Records, Rock Hard, would be recorded not long after. By the end of 1984, the Beastie Boys had converted exclusively to hip-hop, and by that virtue, changed their image from hardcore punk to that of tough rapper guys. Now, despite being a lesbian, Kate Schellenbach did not fit the image of being a tough rapper guy. In fact, she was fired from the band in December of 1984.
As those guys speak about this later on, they definitely regretted how that went down. But it was almost like Rick Rubin was kind of like,
dude, he was driving a train, man.
Absolutely. So he knew that she didn't fit what he wanted the band to be. And she kind of described it in the book as well, as they kind of just grew apart.
Yep.
And she probably would have left on her own after a while anyhow, because they were just going in a totally different direction.
But she seemed to do quite well with herself as
later on.
She's gotten older. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a band called Luscious Jackson.
If you may have heard of them. So there was there's a picture, and you can see it. It's almost like they took the picture like a week before she was fired, and then the next week they're all wearing jumpsuits. Tracksuits?
Tracksuits, the Puma ones,
the black and red.
Yes.
So they're wearing black and red tracksuits, and there's the 4 of them, and then she has like the butch haircut, really short. There's 4 of them. Then there is the same picture, same outfits, same everything, except she's gone.
She's out of there. Yeah.
It's just the 3 dudes. It's like, hey man, I hope you guys didn't get rid of your your tracksuits. Come back for another session. Now that it's just 3.
It's like one of the things, like when they broke up, like you see them like movies where you break up with like your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, they like cut them out of the picture. Just like throw it back on there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we should get like white Lecoq Sportif jumpsuits.
Oh, dude, I said that a long time ago about like a new logo
with like white Kangol hats.
I think it'd be sweet. Gold chains. And stuff.
Gold chains.
I'm down.
You can get the V-dub one.
Yeah, well, not even that, but just like
give me some Cuban links.
I said about dressing like the gentleman,
like 20 gauge. Okay, we can do that.
There's plaid tracksuits. Because Matt, you look like that dude in that one.
When I grow a little bit, when I grow a little bit of a beard, I can pull that off. But we could do that in a mailbag. Yeah, see, like our new image.
Right.
We just totally sold out. Like whatever, like if you donate and we have a new image,
whatever's popular.
whatever you want.
Speaking of new image, and since we're recording this in the holiday season, have either of you guys seen the Target commercials with that hipster Santa?
No.
Oh my God.
There's a hipster Santa?
Yeah.
Does he have like a curled up mustache.
No, so he's got just a nice, like a mature person's haircut, like, you know, not too long on top. You know, it's just a good gentleman's
like a young
haircut.
Politician.
And a beard, but well meticulated beard. And he's walking around like a flannel, well buttoned up shirt, like skinny, skinny furry. What's that called? The when your pants are lined with like this furry shit. What's that called?
Like a faux
fleece line.
Thank you. Yeah. Fleece lined pants, boots. It's hipster Santa
drinking like a smoothie.
It's bad.
Are they trying to redo the image,
dude? It's fucking
of
bad.
Santa Claus.
Yeah,
what?
Dude. Look up Target Santa. It's fucking bad.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to cut them off like I did Starbucks.
I want nothing to do with them.
Nothing.
They really are just crushing the idea of what Santa's supposed to look like.
Right.
Skinny. Think of skinny Santa. Again, wearing skinny jeans,
but not like the big furry white beard. You said he got like a trim beard.
Oh, well manicured. There's oil in it.
Oh, geez.
some beard oil.
I'm telling you, it's wrong. Wow. It's just wrong.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's not cool.
Had to put that out there.
No,
'tis
cool.
the season.
Yes.
Well, as hip hop expanded into the mainstream, the Beastie Boys and DJ Double R, known as Rick Rubin, were tapped to join Madonna on her 1985 Like a Virgin tour.
So, quick story about that.
How did they land that?
This is really cool how this happened. So, Madonna's management team called Russell Simmons and was like, "Hey, could we get Run DMC to open for Madonna?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's $20,000 a night."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Yeah, no, we can't do that." They hang up. They call back like, "Hey, can we get the Fat Boys?" And Russell Simmons like, "Nah, they're busy. I can't. But I got these boys, the Beastie Boys. They'll do it for $500. I think it was $500 a night." They're like, "We'll take it."
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. It was like, and here's the funny part: he did not even represent the Fat Boys. He just told them that
that's awesome
to move along. You know what I mean? So that they
weren't Def Jam Records.
No, they I forget who they were with, but yeah. So that was pretty cool. And Russell is a businessman. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not losing out. I can promote my boys here, and yeah, they'll make a little money, get some." Now at this time, just to be honest with you, Madonna at the beginning of the tour, it was within the tour that she blew up. Like she was not
as big as what she was.
That makes sense.
So, like, I guess a couple shows into the tour, it started getting radio.
Yeah, then they started taking some of her singles, and they started growing. But as they grew, like you said, you have these young kids there, so people are seeing them like these guys joking around, like,
right.
what is this? Like, is this funny? But people started getting into their music
for sure.
Well, so for sure, and kudos to the Beastie Boys. I mean, these guys are hard workers. While on this tour, they'd be there to open the show for Madonna. They'd play to her fans. They would finish whenever. Then they'd leave that show, go to local clubs again right afterwards, play their own music, play again,
right,
to a whole different group of people who weren't, look at the stupid Madonna show,
right.
And then they'd finally sleep on the tour bus or the plane each night.
Well,
they basically played. They were playing like all day or all night, and then they would just sleep when they were traveling.
So they only had Rock Hard and one other song at that time.
Okay.
And also they would go out, and these are like 12-year-old, 15-year-old girls, like the majority of the people in the audience. And
they're playing at decibels.
Right. And one thing that Rick Rubin pushed for these guys was they were big like wrestling fans. You know how wrestling is just like a big show.
Sure.
Like, just be loud and obnoxious.
Like crazy and silly.
So he wanted that to be kind of what the Beastie Boys emulated in the music world. So they'd come out and just be annoying and just to the crowd and just like.
Well, no, they'd had like blow up penises like on stage.
Well, not at this point.
Was this okay?
But it was that was later on. But these girls are like with their mouths open, like, what the hell is this? Because they're just irreverent and coming out.
So they were like insane clown posse.
Yeah, they were there for the shock value.
Yeah, before they were like ICP.
It's all shock value.
It wasn't a good mix, but Madonna liked them. She wanted to keep them on tour with
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Madonna, with MTV becoming the place to be for musicians to make their mark, a video for the Beastie Boys' second single with Def Jam, She's On It, was created and released in late August. Rick Rubin was already a deal maker and a handshaker. He'd managed to position She's On It into heavy rotation on MTV. Crush Groove, a movie loosely based on the humble beginnings of Def Jam Records, which also featured the Beastie Boys in a cameo appearance, was released in late October. So everything's lining up.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a story behind when that video came out. There must have been a station, and I asked Brooklyn Bryan, buddy of mine, about this, and he doesn't remember. But in the book they talk about there was a station in New York. It was like UHF channel that they would play music videos on. It wasn't MTV.
But it was like local access.
Like a local public access,
Sure.
right? So this young girl sees, these young girls are seeing this Beastie Boys. She's on a video and they love it. This girl happened to be the daughter of a very, he was like a CEO of a record label. And she's like having her bat mitzvah, I guess. Is that what it is for the female?
Yep.
And she's like, Daddy, I want Beastie Boys to come play at my bat mitzvah. So he calls the management and wants Run DMC and Beastie Boys to come to this girl's bat mitzvah. So they're all like 17, 18 at the time. These girls are all like 16. The dad knew nothing about Beastie Boys.
Sure.
He went to Run DMC and them to come. Now he was aware of Beastie Boys or of Run DMC at the time. In between the time that he booked them and they showed up, he found out what they were kind of about from this video and stuff. So when a limo came, picked them up in Manhattan and drove them out to Long Island, and they talk about it in the book, they get there and they're escorted right into a private like secondary house and locked in there. He does not want them. He was like, I don't want anywhere. I don't want these boys out mingling with these 16-year-old girls because now I kind of see what they're about. Right. So they go in there and he I think it was Mike D was telling the story in the book. One of the DJ, I don't know if it was the DJ, it wouldn't have been Rick Rubin, but somebody that was with him in the crew broke out through a window and went out streaking around the pool.
That's great.
And they got him in, locked him back in the house. When they brought him out to perform, and they did She's On It and probably that one other song, about halfway through, the dad pulled the plug and was like, all right, thanks, fellas, gave him the money, and they left.
Yeah.
He was like, you guys got to get out of here. So
he didn't want a case. He didn't want to catch a case.
Right. So this is before, obviously, like the MTV play and all that. They were they weren't quite what they would become, obviously, but I thought that was a wild story. But to have that money for your daughter to have Run DMC at the time was huge.
That's baller.
Yeah.
That's
see
carriage
that
money.
MTV has that, like My Sweet 16. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those. Yeah, where they're like, these guys, like Lil Wayne had his kid on, and
right.
They're putting out money, man.
Did either of you guys ever see that Crush Groove movie?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long time, but Crush grooving, body moving.
I'm just asking. I've never seen it.
Oh man, it's a great flick.
It's pretty cool.
There's a cool scene in there. I think that's Crush Groove, or is that Breaking?
You're thinking of Breaking or Breaking 2.
Where he's dancing with
Electric
the broom.
Boogaloo. Yeah, that's Breaking 2.
Okay. Turbo.
I know that's Breaking. There are moves back there.
Yeah.
For my money, I'll take Beat Street.
Yeah, Beat Street. That's another good one.
Beat Street is great. Big fan. So She's On It. That was just, again, a single. That wasn't on any album. That was just a single they recorded.
They have a video, too, for it, like I talked about. Yeah.
Yep. The Beastie Boys were now becoming a national name. In May 1986, Def Jam released the Beastie Boys single, Hold It Now, Hit It, in advance of their touring as an opening act for Run DMC. The single, Paul Revere, would follow not long after in August, followed by The New Style, released in the first week of November. And on November 15th, 1986, License to Ill hit record store shelves.
Yeah, that Hold It Now, Hit It was like, it was cool to hear them describe how they came up with that.
Yeah.
So when they did She's On It and the stuff before, it was like the style was kind of getting fed to them, like, hey, say this, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very much, and Rick Rubin, I'm not going to lie, and all this had a lot to do with like what they were recording and what the music would go on to be. But this Hold It Now, Hit It was the first time that they got together and were like, it would be cool if we took, this Hold It Now was from Curtis Blow, and it Hit It was Slick Rick, and
they threw some horns,
and
some
all
whistles,
and it was all their influences, and they put it all together, and they had the song kind of put together, and they played it for Rick Rubin, and he was like, "This is awesome. We got to put it out right now."
Nice.
And when they played it for Russell, he was like, "Absolutely, this is going to be huge."
That's
and
fantastic.
He kept telling them like, "You guys are going to be the biggest thing." Like he saw being a white group doing rap music, like they were going to be huge because it was, you could now sell
They're breaking the barrier.
You could sell it to
white kids who got money.
Right.
Absolutely. As you guys like to say real quick, Beastie Boys fun fact. Ad Rock's mom was a Catholic. His dad was Jewish.
Yes.
However,
I didn't know that.
MCA's mother was Jewish and his father was Catholic.
Maybe my kids will be like the Beastie Boys.
Little flip
They
flop.
might be, yeah.
It was just interesting to see too that the mother was Catholic, and the other one's mother is a Jew, and then the other guy's father is Catholic, and the other guy's father is it's just the reverse of the two things.
Yeah,
right.
But like the Beastie Boys growing like Yacht and all them like that. They had money. These like weren't like
no
thinking
they
inner
weren't broke.
city,
correct,
Right.
inner city like New York Kids.
Right. No, it wasn't.
This wasn't like the show Kids or the movie Kids.
No. They definitely, I would say, were at least middle class, if not above that.
Yeah, they were pretty upper middle.
If you're living in Manhattan, especially.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
They had money.
Right.
I mean, that's the background on the Beastie Boys. This has taken us from their humble beginnings, and although we've already mentioned that their upbringing wasn't exactly humble, but
that feeling.
The Beastie Boys' humble beginnings to the release of this album, Licensed to Ill.
And one thing I thought was cool too when they talked about the recording of this and how they came up with different tracks and stuff. There was the first song on the album is Rhyming and Stealing,
sure
right?
Is.
So there's a sample on that from Led Zeppelin. I forget what song it is. The Levee.
When the Levee Breaks.
When the Levee Breaks. Yeah.
But they described back then in the 80s, like you could only take a 1 second clip and loop
for a sample?
For a sample. So to get around that, he heard about, and this is before the internet, and they talk about it in the book, that he was always so ahead of things, and they were like, how do you know about this stuff? Like, how do you even know how to do this? So he took reel-to-reel and stretched the tape out, like, around chairs and around the table, like, to make the tape extra long, and loop that part of When the Levee Breaks, the drum beat for that song. So there was unique things like that went into the recording of this album that people weren't really doing at that time. And obviously the introduction of the 808 drum machine that they used, that was also something that at the time other people were using, but that was like just up and coming at the time. But I thought that was a pretty interesting story when they described it. So yeah, back to the track listing. I guess we'll get into that. Matt, you want to take that?
Okay, I'll do side one, track one. Rhyming and Stealing, written by Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin. Track 2, we got The New Style, and that's also, like, all these are written by Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin, which you don't see a lot anymore. All these artists you see now, they have songs written by these songwriters, and they mostly, like, put them out there for them, or write them for certain, people. So that's cool to see that, also. Track 3, we have She's Crafty. She's just my type. 4, we have Posse in Effect. 5, Slow Ride. 6, we have Girls, which is probably my kids think it's like the funniest song in the world.
Yeah, right.
Which a lot of people don't give any respect to that song. They're kind of like, they think I think that's like rated as one of the worst. I think it is the worst.
Well, it was a
rated
joke.
song.
They did it as a joke.
Yeah.
I would agree with that rating.
Yeah, it is. But I'm just saying it's a funny song. It's like, because the tune's kind of fun too. I'm saying for kids. And track 7 is Fight for Your Right, which wasn't really one of my favorite Beastie Boys.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But that's the one that kind of broke this album, I should say.
And do you want to do side 2 there, Dave, or Zap? Take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, that's fine.
Go for it.
Yeah, so side 2 is No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and that was by Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin. And then we have Paul Revere, which is one of my personal favorites. That was by Adam Horowitz, Daryl McDaniels, who was from Run DMC, Joseph Simmons, and Rick Rubin. Holding Out Hit It is Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin. Brass Monkey, Beastie Boys, Rick Rubin. We have Slow and Low by DMC again, and Joseph Simmons and Rick Rubin, and Time to Get Ill by Beastie Boys and Rick Rubin. Now, I'm thinking Joseph Simmons is
Russell Simmons' brother.
Yeah, from Run DMC.
Correct.
I was thinking
you have the two. You have the Run and the DMC from Run DMC. The only thing,
Jam Master Jay is the DJ. Yeah,
that's right. So Jam Master Jay, he was the DJ. You've got you got MC Run. And then you got DMC.
Yeah, I knew they were brothers, but I actually didn't know Run's first name was Joseph. Yeah, I did not know that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So on
he's a reverend.
He is a reverend. Yes, I think you can go to school or not go to school. You can go online and get like a license for that.
You can,
like your reverend license
to Ill. All right. So for the band members of the Beastie Boys, we talked about them already, but here they go. So we have Adam Keith Horowitz. That's AKA Ad Rock, the King Ad Rock. He's on vocals and guitar. Adam Nathaniel Yalk, AKA MCA. Vocals, bass guitar, upright bass, and keyboard. Then we have Michael Lewis Diamond, a.k.a. Mike D. Vocals, drums, percussions, keyboards. Additional members: Rick Rubin, rhythm guitar on No Sleep Till Brooklyn. Kerry King from Slayer, and he was on Fight for Your Right and No Sleep Till Brooklyn. And Nelson Keane Karst, Danny Littman, and Tony Orbach on horns and percussions on Slow Ride. This was produced by Rick Rubin. Beastie Boys. Joe Blaney did the mixing. Stephen Ett is the audio engineer. Steve Bryan on the art direction, I should say. Sonny Bach on photography, and Dave Gamble on cover art. Now, one thing I do know they were upset about, that would be, I shouldn't say but upset about, but a little bit bummed, was in the era they grew up with punk rock, you would do your own artwork. You would draw it up. You would do all that stuff. Yep. All this artwork was kind of prepackaged and delivered to them like, this is going to be your album cover, as well as the mixing and editing on this. Adam Yauch was able to do all that. But what happened is that Rick Rubin went ahead and kind of cleaned this whole album up and edited it and did everything himself and kind of presented it to him like, hey, it's all done. I got it all mixed and ready for you. So they really had no
input.
No input on like, the way it sounded or anything, but they were happy with how like professional it sounded. It was like ready for the radio, ready for, that. Obviously later on later albums, that's why kind of they went their own route, which we'll get into that, I guess, maybe later on.
Yeah. So let's get into some track specific facts. Shall we?
Did you guys talk about like Dr. Dre? Or DJ Hurricane,
from Dr. Dre and Ed Lover.
No, it wasn't him. They actually the Beastie Boys did have
I used to love that show.
Yeah,
Yo MTV Raps.
That was Yo MTV Raps.
Fab Five Freddy.
But did you guys about Dr. Dre was one of the first DJs they had after Rick Rubin, because Rick Rubin and did we get to their fallout yet or anything like that?
No, but that's not the Dr. Dre.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's Dr. Dre was the name. That's what I'm saying. It's funny because it's just some like chubby. DJ dude.
And if you say Dr. Dre to most people, they're thinking of Dr. Dre from NWA.
Yeah, correct. I'm glad we explained that. But that was the name of the DJ was Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
And then they had, I think the one that traveled with them the most was this DJ Hurricane, which was just some kid from
Hurricane's the one who's with him.
Yeah, was with him through the ride. He took the ride with him. But that guy was pretty talented. He was a pretty cool DJ. They were very close to him. But he was, and this one thing I saw about the Beastie Boys, it was like an unauthorized whatever, so they couldn't use their music or anything.
Right.
But they talked to like Dr. Dre, who was not Dr. Dre that you're thinking, and this DJ Hurricane, like Mix Master Mike or something like that. Mm-hmm. But this DJ Hurricane was saying that like when they were touring with like DMC, like people would go backstage with them. These white boys are crazy because they'd just be like throwing, like you'd walk in, there'd be like bottles whipping across you. They're like throwing food at you and stuff like that. They said like their backstage stuff wasn't like how you would think these rock stars or like big rappers would be, like, all these ladies and stuff. They just like ragging on people and like,
it was
they were just like a bunch of kids and like just enjoying what they made of themselves. So I thought that was like a fun thing to say.
It was that whole wrestling thing. Like, just trying to be crazy and off the wall.
But yeah, Rick Rubin wasn't their DJ for forever. They took this DJ Hurricane guy, which was pretty much their guy.
Yep.
Okay. Let's get into some album specific and track specific facts, shall we? So first and foremost, the album was originally titled "Don't Be a Faggot."
Yes, and they said no.
Yeah, the record label was like, "Yeah, you can't do that."
It's probably a bad idea. Well, you can, but you're not going to sell any records.
You're not going to sell any records.
Well, they wouldn't approve it. The record label was like, "Yeah, it's not going to happen."
I think they chose wisely by not going with that title.
Well, in the 80s especially, like I'm not going to say I was surprised, but that term was thrown around a lot in movies and everything else. So I'm not saying I'm surprised that they didn't allow it to go through, but I kind of was in a way that they wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, whatever. It wasn't a big deal.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, back then. But yeah, in the mid 80s, that could have been a hard album to sell.
Right.
To a lot of like the gay people would have been like, I don't want that album.
Sure. There's a lot of foul words that could be used, and this was one. And it was the despite being less foul than so many other words at the time, the record company was like, well, there's no need to push the envelope on that. Let's just move it along.
Yeah, I think Ad Rock, the way he described it in the book, was like they were kind of making fun of the jock culture, like in college and all that. So that's kind of why he's like, but obviously looking back, he's like, we regret that we even thought about that, and he's glad that they shut it down.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. The album was actually certified platinum. That is 1 million copies sold by February 2nd of 1987. That's just 2.5 months after its release.
And I think I read that. Like,
dude, that's huge.
It is huge, but I think I read too, as of now, it's like 10 million.
10 million, whatever they call that.
Like diamond status or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I had read that it was ranked at 192 on Rolling Stone magazine's 2020 list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. Now, I couldn't care less what Rolling Stone says.
Yeah,
but I mean, it is a magazine or a periodical that a lot of people read or a lot of people are into. So hey man, I mean, that says a lot.
You take it with a grain of salt, but it's hard, like how you would even know that. I hate when they do like the top 100 songs of
correct
this,
in
or
your
like,
opinion,
the top 100 albums that you need to get like today, and you're just like, man, I are you hurt? But most of those, when they do say that, I mean, they are, like you said, this record thing, and the Rolling Stones is a Rolling Stone, but some of the stuff, you can agree to disagree with.
Yep. Dave, I know you have a copy of this album. Do you have any fun facts on the what the album features?
So the front of the crash plane is made to like emulate a joint being put out.
Okay, an extinguished joint.
Extinguished joint. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that's pretty cool.
I thought that was a cigarette.
Yeah, well, I think it's more a joint because they were into weed smoke. But,
sure.
Yes.
And then also on the back of the plane there is it's 3MTA3, which spells "eat me when viewed in a mirror." So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And fun fact.
So
Eminem came out with an album maybe like a year or two ago, and he emulated this on the front of his. I think it was called Kamikaze.
Okay.
And he did this basically an ode to the Beastie Boys.
Nice.
It's the same cover art, tweaked a little bit for him because it's Eminem, but
sure.
yeah, because he's obviously very influenced by Beastie Boys. So.
Nice. I had read that there were 2 tracks that were left off of the album. One is known as Scenario, and another is a rendition of the Beatles song. That's not the Beasties song, but the Beatles song, I'm Down. I found it interesting because I'm Down was pulled due to legal disputes with Michael Jackson, who owned the Beatles publishing rights at the time. Yes. Do you guys remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yes, he did.
I totally remember that.
Yeah, he bought the whole catalog.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, but that's right. He did buy the cow. Now I do remember that part. But back to that song "Rock Hard," there was a AC/DC track mixed in with that.
Yeah,
and I guess like it's never really been released, or when it was released, I guess they were maybe in copyright infringement or whatever, because they wanted to release this on a compilation. And Mike D, I think it was Mike D or Ad Rock, approached the one member of AC/DC,
Angus Young,
and was like, "Hey, can we use?" And he was like, "Nah, he wouldn't give him permission."
I read this too. So Angus had said basically, "Look, sorry, man, we just don't like sampling." And Mike D's response was, "Fine, we don't like guys with guitars."
Right. But yeah, they won't allow it. But you can find it on YouTube.
Sure,
if you go on there.
Sure. So my particular favorite band of all time, Led Zeppelin, is sampled not once, not twice, but thrice on this album, where we hear the drums, and again, only the drums from When the Levee Breaks. We talked about that on Rhymin' and Stealin'. That is overlaid with Black Sabbath's Sweet Leaf guitar riff. So
that's a great song.
It is good. It is convenient. Obviously, I think of so many of these tracks where Rick Rubin is just sitting like a mad scientist somewhere, knowing
yeah.
This has that tempo, cool, and so does this song, great, and like he's playing them simultaneously, picking up this piece and that piece, and again, like, you know, Frankensteining them together.
Right.
But you're right though, with like those like 70s. Well, Sweet Leaf was what, 70s, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it was just like that like you can put that with like any like just feeling, and then the same thing with like Zeppelin, like they had that just that like pump, that beat, that just, you know. And Rick Rubin was pretty smart dude.
He was a genius.
Yeah. I can't help but remind myself that this is Rick Rubin growing up with Led Zeppelin, right? Like that would have been his jams growing up. He just plays what he knows, and he just applies that to this new concept known as hip hop.
Right.
I'm sorry. So back to Led Zeppelin. The second instance of Led Zeppelin is the guitar riff from The Ocean on the track She's Crafty. And finally, the guitar riff from Custard Pie on Time to Get Ill. And that is mixed with Down on the Corner by CCR. So when you hear that thing of CCR playing, you're going to hear the riff right before it of Custard Pie.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. Shall we go through all of the sampling?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool to know about that for people that are listening.
So for the people that are listening, other samples, track by track, besides the aforementioned 5 samples, include on Rhymin' and Stealin', I Fought the Law by The Clash. On the new style, we've got Drop the Bomb by Trouble Funk, Peter Piper by Run DMC, which I found interesting that they're already sampling a hip hop track that's only a year or two old.
No, it doesn't take long at all. Actually, Third Base, who's another white rap group that came out a couple years after them, sampled Beastie Boys on the Cactus album.
Nice.
Which was within like a year or two of
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, homage. Like I would think it's an honor.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you get spoofed by Weird Al Yankovic.
Right.
It's like, wow, man, I've really made it
cool.
if I'm getting spoofed by Weird Al.
Yeah, but that Third Base didn't like Beastie Boys early on, but I'll talk about that later.
Okay. Let's see. Third track sample. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Weird Al is back on tour. If anybody wants to know, he is sold out shows all over. I'm actually trying to score some tickets.
Nice. Yeah. Has anyone seen the Daniel Radcliffe?
Yes.
Yes, that's fantastic.
The documentary type thing they had on.
I found it.
Is it Hulu or something?
Yeah, I found it very difficult to watch.
Yeah. I thought it was good.
Look, I get it. There's a lot of slapstick, sure.
It's slapstick, but the way that they had it, like he's the one that they're taking stuff off of, was that was genius.
That's fair, and he was the global media sensation.
Like he had all like the hot chicks, and it was good. It was good.
That's funny.
I'm sorry. So third trick sampled in or taken in the new style is "Cool Is Back" by Funk Incorporated. Then you have 2-3 Break by the B-Boys and Flick of the Switch by AC/DC. In Posse in Effect, we hear Catch a Groove by Juice, The Pee-wee Dance by Joski Love, and Change the Beat by Beside. In the track Slow Ride, we obviously hear Low Rider by War. We also hear Down on the Avenue by Fat Larry's band. In the track Paul Revere, we hear It's Yours by Tila Rock and Jazzy J. We also hear Hardcore Hip Hop by Mantronics. Within the track Hold It Now, Hit It, we hear such tracks as The Return of Leroy by the Jimmy Castor Bunch, Lottie Dottie by Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick, Funky Stuff by Kool and the Gang, Christmas Rappin' by Curtis Blow, Drop the Bomb by Trouble Funk.
Yeah, Dougie Fresh, man, and Slick Rick, they're another couple that I like Slick Rick on his own as well, but
icons.
Icons. Yeah, Dougie Fresh, The Show, that was a jam back in. I mean, as a young kid, I remember that. I have an older brother that's like 5 years older. Like a lot of these bands in here, like the rock stuff. I got to be honest, like Led Zeppelin. When I first heard Led Zeppelin, I was like, oh, Beastie Boys.
Yeah, yep.
Because I heard I heard Beastie Boys before Led Zeppelin.
Same. I got that as my own little personal fun fact.
Yeah. So, but a lot of these rap groups that they talk about in their book and that we're referencing here with samples, I was exposed to at a young age.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like what you guys were saying, but I remember hearing Beastie Boys. I have a whole story about that. Like the first time I actually heard it, License to Ill album, where like the kid held it. He's like, "Oh, you guys are."
Yeah.
But like I remember hearing them and knowing the samples from what my dad would play.
What your dad would play,
yeah. Because my dad was like really into music growing up, and that's one thing I do remember like fondly of my dad is like he had a great like in the basement had like a great setup
collection of music.
Like great speakers, and I just remember some of the stuff that he would play. He'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool, I can dig that. Yeah. But like hearing some of the beats, be like, oh dude, that like it rings a bell. Like I know what that is, and I think that's cool.
Not
like
to
what
be
they did
with Rock the Bells.
Rock the Bells,
right? Radio, right.
Next track on Brass Monkey, we hear "Bring It Here" by Wild Sugar, which is essentially the whole song.
Yeah,
the whole track that is Brass Monkey minus their lyrics. I'm saying the saxophone, the everything. That's from "Bring It Here" by Wild Sugar.
That's a great song.
It is a great song.
On Slow and Low, we hear "Flick of the Switch" by AC/DC. And in Time to Get Ill, we hear a plethora of tracks. We hear "I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More Baby" by Barry White. "I Love Rock and Roll" by Joan Jett the Blackhearts. We hear the Green Acres TV theme by Vic Mizzy and Eddie Albert. We hear the Mr. Ed TV theme by Jay Livingston. We hear "Gucci Time" by Schoolie D. "The Party Scene" by the Russell Brothers. "Rocket in the Pocket" by Cerrone. And "Nothing from Nothing" by Billy Preston.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard that track.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, "Fight for Your Right" and "No Sleep Till Brooklyn" include lead guitar played by Kerry King of Slayer. Actually, Rick Rubin had been producing Slayer's Rain and Blood album at the same time.
Yes,
yeah,
He's like, dude, since you're here, why don't you lay this down for me?
Mm-hmm.
For me.
Yeah, he was way into the metal music and all that. Rick Rubin.
Shit,
stuff.
yeah.
But here,
I was going to say, you can hear that in 99 Problems.
Oh, yeah. He would mash it up.
His love of metal is there, bro.
But it's like Ruben with metal, Ruben with I was going to hold this off till fun facts, but since we're talking about like Ruben and the stuff that he did,
we're in fun facts.
Yeah. So like Kesha, Lady Gaga, and Adele all worked with Rick Rubin.
Oh, he's like,
and then you're talking like Metallica, Danzig, Slayer, who you just mentioned,
Chili Peppers.
Yep, The Cult, Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, Weezer, The Strokes, Audio Slave. He did work for Slipknot. He produced most of their albums.
I love The Strokes.
They're good. They're
so good, man.
System of a Down, Linkin Park, and those are just some of the ones that that I read about that he was involved with directly. So the guy knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Shit, yeah. So Matt, we were at one point talking about I'm sure we all have our own personal stories and memories of this album. Matt, you were going to mention something about when you first heard it.
Yeah, I think I was playing baseball in a team for Lower Wood area, Middletown team. And there was this kid, Mike Veza. I don't know if I can say his name or whatever.
You say whatever you want. You're a grown-ass man.
Stu Mike Veza, I guess he had an older cousin or whatever, and he pulled this tape out. And we was like 6 of us going to one of our baseball games. It was the summer, I think, of '87. And he had like License to Ill. And he's like, you guys are like, oh my gosh, yeah, like we heard. So we're putting it in and like the songs. And I just remember like sitting in this caravan, and like all of us are just jamming out to License to Ill. And I just like, I don't know. I just thought it's one of those things where people talk about music, like in the relationship of stuff that happens in life. And it was one of the things I just, the memory I have of it is just like right on.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my memories of it, I spoke about, I have an older brother. So I was very much being 5 years older. He had his finger on the pulse with rap music and everything. Cause he was like, at this time when this came out, he was 15, probably 14, 15 years old. And I remember Run DMC, he had all that, and then we found out, there's like a white rap group, the Beastie Boys, and that would have been my first exposure to it. And then in like '87, I guess, when like Fight for Your Right probably hit the airwaves of MTV, obviously I was very like, that's a memory of seeing that video, and it just was played all the time. Now I personally didn't like that song.
Right.
Agree.
I like the more traditional rap music. So my earliest memories are from like Holding Out, Hit It, and a couple of those tracks, like the heavy bass and all that stuff like that. So that's a fun fact too about their, I was talking about that drum machine, the 808. At the time, they would go on tour and they would have these PA systems that could not handle the low end of the bass of the tracks they were playing. Oh. So they would blow up PA systems like a track or two into their performance.
That's awesome.
And they would, basically tell people like, hey, not our fault. Tell them to get better equipment.
Like the back blow would like take out the woofer then
it was just too much bass and so it was basically they were creating music, and all these rap groups at the time were using that TR-808, I think it was called, drum machine.
So the frequency was just so strong.
It was so low. That is the tempo or anything we talked
Slow
about.
And low.
I've heard such things.
Right. And then obviously car stereos and all that at the time were coming into, they were probably around for a little while, but people would have the booming systems, and they were talking about how you would just hear up and down streets like this.
Yeah, cars do drive by with the booming system.
This was the album to play. Well, this and Run DMC and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Cool
my
J.
earliest memory of that, is just kind of, I have a vague memory of like, there's white boys that rap. That's pretty cool. And then Fight for Your Right, I was probably, 11 or 12 by then. It was all over the airwaves.
Yeah, for sure. I guess my earliest memory is, for sure, very similar. These guys hit MTV. My first exposure would, of course, have been like Fight for Your Right or something with a heavy guitar to it. But that ended up not being any songs I liked. Like none of the not none, but that video, I remember seeing that and thinking like, oh my God, this is scary. Right? This is like being a kid and you see like, I don't know, Dio or Slayer or something like that. Like, oh my God, they're making devil signs. This hard rock stuff.
It's like forbidden. Yeah.
It is forbidden. But I remember listening to it with a good buddy of mine from grade school, Jeremy Thomas.
JT.
Yeah. We just recently saw him. Love you, brother. And just loving it. Absolutely loving it. And loving truly the traditional, hip hop ones. Not the ones so commingled with the rock per se,
right.
but truly the hip hop ones. Now, obviously, that's not to say that I don't like the rock ones. In fact, I love what Anthrax later on went on to do, like a year or two later with Public Enemy.
Bring the Noise, yeah, that's a good track.
Bring the Noise.
Love that stuff. So it's not that I didn't like Beastie Boys' versions of that. It's just that I remember and fancy the hip hop style ones. It just the most. And again, it's like Matt had said, it's like those childhood memories that you just don't forget.
Right. And like for Beastie Boys, like I said, I dug them like as an 11 or 12-year-old, but I really would say it was by the time I got my license in high school and was driving and had like a good...
You into V-dubs and stuff too.
Well, even in high school, like just having a stereo in my car, I had the kicker box. And this was an album that you would put on like for your system, basically.
For competition.
It'd be like, not even for competition, but just like...
Flex.
To show like, the bass that you could, that your car could have. But... a buddy of ours that we graduated, Paul Zavini, I remember him he was like, oh, you got to check out Paul's Boutique. And when Paul's Boutique came out, I'm not going to lie.
So good.
It was good, but I didn't get it. I'm like, no, I want Licensed to Ill music. Right. Like Paul's Boutique was kind of like an experimental to me. Like, what are they doing? Why are they changing? But he was like, no, you got to go into the tracks and listen like High Plains Drifter and this and that. And hearing it on a good stereo a couple years later, this is like 93, 94. I'm like, oh, shit. This is a great album.
Oh, my God, yeah.
But Licensed to Ill definitely as well. I mean, but I dug Licensed to Ill when it first came out and still do. I still think it's a great album.
I remember this album coming out, and I remember not sticking with it long. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it's my favorite album of all time. Right, where I spent months and months with this album. I mean, I listened to it a couple of times, and I dug it, and I will, of course, go on to hear more singles. But, at the same time, I look, as we're doing this review, I'm certainly going to, listen to that album a few times, let it all soak in again.
Right.
And, really rekindle those memories that were associated with this. And man, this really was like during our formative years when this came out, it's memories again, like Matt had said, I'll keep repeating it. It's just things you don't forget.
Right.
And what I dig about the Beastie Boys is at that time, like rap was basically like a black thing, and it was black rappers, this and that. Sure. And I think with Run DMC able to bring the Beastie Boys on that tour and introducing people that were into like Run DMC, like hardcore rap, into the stuff that the Beastie Boys are bringing as like these three young white kids, that they could actually do it too. And it's like, it's something that brought like rap into like, it's not just like a black thing. It's like it's ours then. It's like an everybody thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
and I think it opened like a bunch of doors, and I thought it was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're definitely being influenced as young kids by what you're listening to and stuff. So it was like, oh, like, maybe like a young Eminem was like, oh, I could do that, or I'd like to do that. Like maybe I could do that. But
or like you said about like a third base or people like that, or even like who was the guy that everybody made fun of? He had his own
Snow.
movie. Yeah. Snow Informer. He wasn't American though. Like I think he was
Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, like who's that?
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice. Yeah, like he wouldn't have ever tried to rap or whatever it wasn't for the Beastie Boys.
True.
No.
Even though his rap was weak, but
no, it wasn't that good.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I think they opened a lot of doors, and kids could dress that way and not feel like they could dress like a little gangster and not feel like they can't dress like that.
Man, Vanilla Ice's beats is whack, yo.
Yeah, he's whack, yo.
I'm not gonna lie. When Vanilla Ice first came out, I was like, yeah, this is nice. I like this song. Like,
we went to the movie, man.
Yeah, well,
remember
Cool as Ice.
Cool as Ice.
I'm talking about the
cool.
Ice Baby. I was like,
no, we had ladies we had ladies there. There was ladies.
Did you have girlies on standby waiting just to say hi?
Exactly.
So there's also a story too. Like 92 is when talking about Beastie Boys, but in 92, Check Your Head came out, and I remember that's around the same time that it was 92, 93, I guess, that Chili Peppers released. Was it Blood Sugar Sex Magic?
Sex Magic.
Now they definitely have a kind of some of those tracks on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, you would say, or I don't want to say it's rapping, but they had a similar sound. Like to me, some of the tracks, I couldn't tell. I remember hearing a Chili Peppers song and thinking it was the Beastie Boys or vice versa. I remember at that time because the Beastie Boys went from what we know as Licensed to Ill, like mostly pure hip hop, to more playing their own instruments and stuff. And I'll never forget that. Like I was in 10th grade and I bought Check Your Head thinking, let me check out Beastie Boys. Maybe they're back to doing what they were doing, but it was kind of like a hybrid where they're playing instruments and it's rapping, but getting confused, like which one's Chili Peppers on tracks and which one is Beastie Boys.
I want to say that Blood Sugar Sex Magic might have come out in 91.
I feel like it was "Give It Away Now" was the song that I was like, is that a Beastie Boys song?
I got you. Yeah,
or is that
Give It Away?
Yeah, I remember being confused about that.
That was a great album too, though.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a good album review.
Well, Check Your Head obviously is one I really love too. Look, like I said,
our logo.
Again, look at our logo.
What album had Sabotage?
That would have been
it's like their fourth.
Ill Communication. So that would have been our senior year.
Ma Bell got the Ill Communication.
So why don't we talk? Let's roll through like your first, second, maybe even third, favorite album songs on this album, and which ones, obviously with that, the ones you liked, and which ones didn't you like and why? Dave, your pick.
Yeah,
okay,
so you pick the album. You go first.
So for me, probably my favorite track is Paul Revere. It's one that I just like the story aspect of it. Like I'm a big fan, like I said, of Slick Rick. I'm a big fan of like storytellers. When I hear a song, a rap song especially, I like to like almost go through like a little story. You know what I mean? Like it actually tells you a story and you kind of follow along. And I think that Paul Revere is a fun, and I like the beat. It's a cool beat. So that'd probably be my favorite. My second favorite song I would probably say is it'd probably be not Rhyming and Stealing. I'm sorry. Holding Out, Hit It. I just like the beat. And it's just one that I like. And then probably after that, it would be Brass Monkey, I would probably say.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd probably go with those three. Like I said, I like outside of Fight for Your Right, Girls, because it's just kind of like a quick, it's whatever it is. And Fight for Your Right. No Sleep Till Brooklyn, I'm a little played out on.
Okay.
And Slow and Low, Time to Get Ill, those other ones are just okay. Rhyming and Stealing, I dig too. I should say that because
I have that one on there.
The Led Zeppelin beat, I dig that. But yeah, that's pretty much, I'd say probably in that order if I'm going to pick three.
Okay. Matt, what do you got?
I had Holding Out, Hit It, Brass Monkey, which I've always liked. That's just like a fun, fun one to sing. The New Style, Rhyming and Stealing. I have like those four as the ones that I really can get into it. But I like all the songs. Even like I said like earlier, Girls is like a stupid song, but it's just fun to sing.
Yeah, it's just like
Fight for Your Right, I can't stand anymore. I don't think I ever really liked that song at all, even when it came out, like the videos and everything. And No Sleep Till Brooklyn also, like I really liked when it first came out, but I think that got played out too.
Yeah, it's just too much now.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you guys have?
I can dig that. So my number one by far and away is going to be Hold It Now, Hit It.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
That is the best. That's the first, if I recall correctly, that's like the first Beastie Boys song I heard, and it was just mind blowing. Just loved it, and I love the sampling. It's good. It's upbeat. It's just it's a feel good track. My second one would be probably She's Crafty.
She's crafty.
She's
just my type.
Yeah.
I like that because it sounds like at the time, this is why I liked it at the time, it was very reminiscent of that could be a Run DMC song.
Yeah, for sure.
100% that's a Run DMC track.
One of these is a Run DMC track that they had shelved.
It is.
Slow and Low?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Slow and Low, yeah, okay.
God, I hate that fucking song.
Yeah, it's not
I can't stand Slow and Low. My third like would be Slow Ride.
Okay.
Definitely dig on Slow Ride. But like you guys had mentioned, definitely don't like Girls. Don't like Fight for Your Right. Although I'm sure I had liked it at the time because of its, its suggestive nature.
Right.
Don't like No Sleep Till Brooklyn. Paul Revere was close to make the list, but I don't like Paul Revere for the same reason that we're going to get into our next segment. Who's your favorite Beastie Boy? I cannot at all. Just with every ounce of my being.
She said every ounce.
Can't stand the voice of Adam Horowitz.
Ad Rock.
King Ad Rock.
Oh, really?
Cannot stand his voice.
That nasally kind of.
It is nails on a chalkboard to me. I can't stand it.
It's a gardenia. Yeah, do you know originally he wanted to go with like a deep kind of voice and everything? He was like, I can't pull it off, so I got to come up with like some kind of gimmick. So he went to that nasally.
He nailed the gimmick.
Yeah, and he was like, I got it because I don't have the voice. It's kind of like me with you two. Yeah. Like I'm the Adam Horowitz, the Ad Rock. So you don't like me? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. Now it's it's interesting that I say that. I can't stand his voice on
that track.
On that track.
On that one track. All right.
Or so many tracks. Yet when it comes to Sabotage, I can't imagine that song without him doing what he does in that track.
Yeah, for me, I get what you're saying about that though. Like on that, I could see where it's like his voice on License Ill across the album on certain songs, you could see where it'd be after a while.
I just want to punch him in the fucking face.
Right. But he might be my favorite Beastie Boy if we're going to get into that. I don't know when you want to get into
Hey,
that.
We're right there. Let's get into it.
Go
so, Dave, your favorite Beastie is Ad Rock. No.
I would say
Ad Rock.
Ad Rock. Mike D would be a close second.
Yeah.
And that would probably be my order. And MCA is one that I used to not really dig at all, but as I got to read more about them, learn more about them, and realized how important he was.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just like he's definitely grown on me.
Okay.
His style was a shit.
Yeah, like
MCA had like he brought that like DMC style.
He was so like looking back on it, he was so smooth and effortless.
Yeah, he didn't really try.
No, yeah, he was definitely cool.
Matt, who's your favorite Beastie?
I don't think I really have a favorite Beastie. I think all like I don't think one would be one without the other.
One lonely Beastie.
I'd be
yeah. Right.
All by myself. Nobody. But no, they couldn't. I think the three are the Beastie Boys for a reason. I mean, what Yak's not here no more.
He passed away 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Which is a shame because that's my favorite.
Yeah,
Yak. Yeah.
MCA is by far and away my favorite. I love the raspiness to his voice. He, in my opinion, Ad Rock and Mike D sound almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
Almost the same. Mike D is just a step. Mike D, you could say, is like a hybrid between MCA and Ad Rock, or like somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike D is much closer to the level of Ad Rock in the level of annoyance.
Right.
MCA with the raspy voice or the different voice, the regular voice of his, like Matt had said, the way he just flows. MCA 100%. Love that guy all day.
Yeah, MCA is great. So on our logo, Zap is Ad Rock, I'm Mike D, and Matt is MCA.
Yep.
On our logo.
But I just think, the Beastie Boys couldn't have been, they were brought together at that time and place to be like many of the bands that you see that are going to be around, that people are going to hear for years to come when we're long gone. I think like the three of them together, if there was only two of them, it wouldn't be the same.
Nope.
No.
Like I think they need all three. I don't think I really have a favorite, or else they wouldn't be the Beastie Boys.
They would be the Beastie Boys.
Agreed.
And I love, like I said, not only the music, but their style, everything about them. And in many ways, as I grew into my teens and into my early 20s and got even more and more into the Beastie Boys, I emulated how they dress. Just their, like the Adidas and the, just as they grew and as they would come out with things, I would use that as a barometer for what's cool. Like, what do we wear now? Like, what are the Beastie Boys doing? And I definitely learned as I got older to kind of appreciate their style and just everything about them. And they're definitely very influential for me. Just my favorite. I would say definitely up there as one of my favorite bands, groups, rap groups, bands, whatever you want to say.
Yes.
So, but I have a couple cool stories out of the book that I just kind of want to go over real quick before we wrap up.
No, don't go quick. It's This is story time with Dave.
Yeah, man.
So real quick, back to their. It's never real quick.
Don't say real quick.
I'm gonna make this quick because I know we're getting there.
You don't have to. Just go ahead, man.
But so back to the start of everything, and there's a cool chapter in this book about a 1981 show by the band Black Flag, who you guys I'm sure are aware of Black Flag.
Yes.
So at that show that night,
That's Henry Rollins.
That is Henry Rollins. Yep.
that was kind of the genesis of the Beastie Boys and how they decided like we need to start a band. Now at that show that night, all three of them were there. But not only the three of them that were there. Now they didn't quite know each other at the time, but also there was Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth, Ian MacKaye from Minor Threat,
Dang.
Henry Garfield, who was in the audience, who would later go on to become Henry Rollins, and he became the lead singer of Black Flag.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of people in that audience in 1981 who went on to become very famous people in bands and stuff. So Black Flag in 1981 was very influential in a lot of artists deciding, hey, we need to start a band or get together and make music. So I thought that was a pretty cool story out of the book. Next up, we all know Mike D liked to wear the Volkswagen logo.
Yeah.
So there's an actual ad that they had to put out. Volkswagen put this ad out. I don't know if it was in magazines or newspapers. It said designer labels always get ripped off. And there's a picture of a Volkswagen GTI with the logo missing. And it says people have been sporting our Volkswagen badges for years, proudly displaying it on the front of their cars. Recently, though, many have been heard to outswear a Beastie Boy the result of finding their badges have gone missing. Their protests haven't fallen on deaf ears because, as of now, our badge is a positive steal. In fact, it's free. You can lay your hands on one of your own as opposed to somebody else's simply by writing us to the address below. Let it never be said that we're averse to youth cults. After all, who brought you the Beatles? So, yeah, so you could write the Volkswagen and get a logo.
Can we still do that? Emblem. Can we try that today?
I don't know. There might be an address we can kind of make out here at the bottom so we could try.
Yeah, I would like to try that.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then one last thing here. I thought this was pretty wild, like with fake news. We always talk about fake news. So
fake news.
When the Beastie Boys traveled to England, there was all kinds of like papers and stuff writing fake stories about them, like making them sound like they were like the most hard people on earth. So there was here's some headlines from the Daily Mirror. Pop idol sneer at dying kids. Go away, you cripples.
Yeah, they made fun of the cripple kids. yeah, I saw that.
This stuff never happened. They were like, we've never done any of this. Get lost, beasties. Door slams on vile U.S. band.
Yeah, the British hated them for some reason.
And they made up all these stories about them, like yelling at cripples and all kinds of wild stuff. So I just thought that was like really, really wild.
Yeah, so I think DJ Hurricane had a whole thing on that where he was like, he's like, the people in London hated us. And he said that they went there and there was a whole thing written up about how they said during one of their concerts, they started making fun of like crippled kids and kids in wheelchairs.
That's bananas.
Yeah. And he was like, this stuff never happened. But he's like, they hated us over there.
Yeah. And one last story, because Zap, you'll appreciate this. Matt, I told you this story, so he knows about it. So you like Paul's Boutique, as do I. 100%. You would probably say that's your favorite album.
Absolutely.
Matt, what would you say Beastie Boys' favorite album?
I don't really know.
You don't know. You don't have.
I don't really have like a favorite. Like I like the stuff they did from the beginning up until when they started getting like man, I don't know. Right. But good, yeah.
So anyway, Paul's Boutique, they moved out to LA. That's their second album. So they rented a house out in LA. And recorded there. Like they would record there. They had a studio nearby as well. They would work on music. They rented this house and there was a locked closet door in this house. And they're like getting high and they're like, we got to get in that closet.
Sure.
I got to know what's in that closet.
You go to any beach rental, you go to any Airbnb, you're going to find a locked closet.
Door. So they finally jimmy the lock, get it open. There's all this 70s wardrobe. And this is in 88, 89-ish, 88 probably. Mm-hmm. And they're like, look at all these clothes. This shit's wild. Like, we gotta so they start dressing up in this stuff. These are the clothes you'll see in Hey Ladies. Nice. And they're out by the pool and all that wearing those outfits. So these are all outfits out of that closet. But that same day that they found all these clothes, they get a call from their agent. He says, there's a birthday party tonight for Dolly Parton and we want you to go. You need to show up. There's going to be a lot of people there to network with. They all decide like, hey, why don't we wear these outfits tonight to this party? It'll be pretty cool, you know? So Mike D, I think, was the one with his girlfriend that took off for the day. It was like, all right, guys, I'll meet you there. And they're all dressed in his 70s wardrobe. While he left for the day, Ad Rock and MCA decide, screw that. We're not wearing this stuff. This will just be bizarre. You know, we're not going to do it. There's no way to get a hold of Mike D because it's 1988. No cell phones. Screw it, whatever. So he shows up to this party dressed in these wild-ass outfits, him and his girl, and Mike D, or Ad Rock, and MCA are dressed normal for the 1988 or whatever. So Mike D's pissed. He's like, dudes, what the hell? You know what I mean? I'm wearing this to this party. I look like an idiot because this is 10 years after the 70s. The 70s isn't cool yet. Right, you know how like stuff changes.
Retro isn't cool yet.
Yeah. Right. So this is the part you'll love, Zap. He sees Mike D's there at this party, and it's a who's who. Everybody's there. He looks over and sees Bob Dylan.
Okay.
He's like, I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan. I want to go over and introduce myself, but I look like an idiot, but screw it. When am I going to get a chance to talk to Bob Dylan? Sure. So he goes over, introduces himself. Mr. Dylan, my name's Mike D. I'm a huge fan. I'm in a band called Beastie Boys, and I just want to tell you I'm a huge fan of your work. And Bob Dylan says, well, what are you good for? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you good for? What are you good for? Like, how many per night? He's like, how many people like per night at our show? I don't know. We get like a couple thousand, thousands maybe. He's like, cool. Because I'm having a benefit concert for smoking. And I'd love you guys to play there. And he's like, you're having a benefit concert for smoking? He's like, yeah. So I don't know if Bob Dylan was punking him that night, but he was going to have a benefit for smoking.
Oh.
And he wanted the Beastie Boys to play there.
So when I hear benefit for smoking, just to be clear, is this to
to keep smoking.
To continue smoking.
Right. Like, you know, they were probably...
That's the way I heard it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm thinking what was...
Because when I hear, like, each year there's the Great American Smoke Out, I smoke my fucking brains out that day.
Right. Yeah. So what I think Bob Dylan was saying is like, hey, they're trying to outlaw smoking.
We need to benefit it. Like, it's not bad.
That's fucking hilarious.
So I think Bob Dylan did smoke. He started the whole thing with like American Spirits and stuff like that.
Right. But I just thought that was like, there's so many cool stories in that book, and that was just the one that. Now that's more to do with Paul's Boutique. But
what is the book? Is you have it there? It's called Beastie Boys Book.
Beastie Boys Book, yeah. So
any kind of name to it, or just Beastie Boys Book?
Just Beastie Boys Book.
There it is.
Yeah, people should check that out. I might have to borrow that.
It's like Bible size.
It is.
It's big.
I thought it was the Bible when I walked in here.
It's the Beastie Boys Bible book.
It is, but yeah, definitely. Like I said, one of my favorite bands, and I appreciate you guys letting us do the review on it.
This was a good time, Dave. I appreciate that that album review. Who's next on the album review? I kind of like the album reviews.
We don't even know.
I would think that. Did you pick GNR?
GNR was like a hawker. That was a hawker call in.
The first one was, we're doing this
for Nutley Nick.
Let's do this to get somebody in here. A big fan of the show. So for Nutley Nick, we did Bon Jovi. Another big fan of the show for Hawk. Hey man, you pick. So he picked Appetite.
Oh, we should have a fan come in.
Pick.
Yeah, fan pick, and they can come in and do the album review.
We shall see. Who knows what the new year holds?
Who knows? We don't know. We don't know.
Nutley Nick will be pissed if I do not reference that he's the one who actually recommended a vintage album review. Yep. He was like, you need to do that. And I do get a lot of people, oh, you should do this, you should do that.
Thank you, Nutley.
Like Snowman says we should do a vintage video review, or we review old school videos from MTV.
Sure.
And I get a lot of cool recommendations.
A vintage video review would be fun. Yeah. We haven't tried that.
But, so I don't know what'll be next on that. I like that idea, maybe having somebody that, picks it and we kind of interview them, we'll talk to them why. But
yeah, but I'm saying like for an album, since it's not like part of like the... I don't know I don't know where we're structured at it. The new year is crazy. It's 2025. 25.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this will be the last one for, actually we are in 2025, but this will probably be the last one for a little while we sort out what direction we're going to go and what we're going to do in the Old Dirty Basement. So,
we could clean it up. It could be the clean basement. we don't know.
Right. But you guys got anything else on this before we wrap it up?
I got nothing else other than thanks for this. This was wonderful. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep, definitely. And still can find us on Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok. Tell a friend, review it, Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. 5-star ratings, like we say. And I guess that's it for now. So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Album Review in the Old Dirty Basement. You can find us and our theme music from the Tsunami Experiment on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your music and your podcast. Don't forget to leave that 5-star rating on Spotify. And I guess that's it for now, so we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace.